All right, welcome back. Hope you guys had a rad Christmas, super awesome New Year's. Ours was pretty chill. We just played RC cars. Some of the kids' friends came over and they added to our little RC course in the back. So instead of rambling on about what we're gonna do in this video, let's just get started. We got a bunch of welding and painting and grinding and all this fun stuff to do, so we'll just get started right away. Woo! All right, guys, now we're gonna get into some cool stuff. So one of my favorite things to do TIG welding is laminating parts. There is lots of different reasons why you should do it. There's plenty of times you shouldn't do it. If you are into TIG welding and you try to make every single weld better each time, laminating is really fun. So what we're doing is we're taking 1/8 inch plate material and we're using it to mount the seat belts into the chassis. So what I've done is I've taken the main part, which would be this piece right here, 1/8 inch. This is gonna get MIG welded in, but we've taken one and then made one a little bit smaller that is gonna weld to the outside, okay? Now, the key to this is we're going to TIG weld around the edges all the way around, and I'm going to leave the bottom open. So when we lay this down in the chassis, when we MIG weld it in, we'll be welding this piece of 1/8 inch to this piece of 1/8 inch to the chassis. Okay, so here's some science behind keeping your TIG welding parts looking clean. Material, when you buy it at the steel yard, usually has like a gray finish. I don't know if I have something. Well, here's for example, this link right here. Okay, this has a dark gray finish on it. You can sand off. So that is called mill scale. And I know there's going to be people that already know this, and that's totally cool. There's also going to be people out there that don't know this. And one of the most common questions I get TIG welding parts, they always ask, how do you keep the weld looking the same all the way around the part? And how this works is when you buy that steel, say it's on a roller, it's red hot, and they roll out a sheet and it shows up on the rollers, it heads out into ambient temperature, ambient air, and it cools. That gray film on there is the moisture and everything in the air that is sucked into the material. That's what gives it that gray finish. So if you bought like pickled and oiled or cold rolled steel, so cold rolled, same thing. Huge drum of steel comes off, goes through a water cooling bath when it's warm. Before that plate reaches the air, it is already cool. So it stays silver because it didn't have any time to absorb any of the things in the air. So when you TIG weld a part, you can create the exact same scenario as a steel foundry. When you weld this part together right here, you're gonna get it red hot. Well, if it cools with no shielding gas on it, or you just pull the torch away, it's red hot. What's it gonna do? It's gonna absorb all the moisture in the air, all the molecules, and what it's gonna do is it's gonna create a gray film on it. Now, that gray film, its melting point is actually higher than the base metal. So when you go to put your torch in there like this, and you go to weld with all that nasty gray stuff on there, you're gonna get a bunch of these funky looking undercuts on both sides of the weld. And what that is happening, or what that's doing, is the material underneath is melting before the mill scale, and it's like a nanosecond. It happens that fast. So what it does is it carves it out. So you want to wire wheel it, acetone it, get it right back to shiny bare steel again. Now a part this small, it is going to be really hard to keep it from turning gray. So to kind of help yourself, this is a piece of aluminum bar. It's like 1 inch by, I don't know, 2, drilled and tapped, and I have the parts that I'm going to weld bolted to that. So what we're going to do is we're going to weld like half of each of these, unbolt them, throw them to the side, and we're going to keep working our way around. As the parts cool, we'll run a wire brush or a wire wheel and clean it, remove all of the bluing from the previous weld and all of the mill scale that it's created. So that is a huge thing when you laminate parts. The next thing that's important before you laminate the two together, this edge right here, there can be no mill scale on that edge either. So if you cut these on a plasma and you sand the top, you sand the bottom, and you're like, oh man, that part's cool, I put it on there and try to weld, you're like, dude, it looks like crap, spitting out porosity. The mill scale that was created on the edge from the plasma, is also known as dross, is the same thing that happens when the steel comes out from the foundry, red hot, goes into the air, cools, sucks in all that crap, turns it gray. So cleanliness is really the key on your parts, and then keeping up your cleanliness as you're going along welding these parts together. You can use filler metal on these. If you're doing a suspension part, like when we do link brackets that are 1/4 inch and they have like a 3/16 laminate, we'll take a 332 filler metal and we'll put a super nice bead all the way around, so that way that part is double thickness. And when you're doing suspension parts, what you're usually doing is you're changing the the thickness of the bracket for bolt shank when you put that together. And that's a whole nother topic. If you guys are interested in that stuff, comment on it, comment on the video and say, hey, I want to know what you were talking about. I'll do a video specifically on bolt shank length and link tabs if you guys are interested in that. So these parts, I am not going to use filler metal on. They're going to get washed. I'm going to set the pulser up on the machine and we're just going to fuse them together. And it's okay on a part this small. It's not a good habit to get into to build major parts with, keep in mind. But when we fuse this, we're fusing across the top there. The bolt also bolts the two pieces together, and only like a ½ inch below that, you have a solid MIG weld that puts the two together. So that is that. All right, so we're gonna set up the pulser. I'm gonna go probably around 180 amps. We're gonna start there. Pulser's on, and my pulser is set at 60% peak time and about 38 on the downslope. I know there's tons of videos out there that teach you guys how to TIG weld, and it's super cool because there's a lot of really smart welders out there. I'm not one of them. I'm just a guy that builds stuff for fun, but there is a lot of tricks that I have learned over the years that could help other people. So let's get cracking. All right, all the little tabs here, done, ready to go. So we're gonna start with a couple basics on putting fittings into tubing. So I'm gonna run a 14 Pyrex cup on this, and I normally run this on doing headers in stainless. I've never actually used it for doing links because it's kind of a waste of shielding gas, to be honest with you. So I normally run a number 10. You can put this in with anything. You could run a number 5 if you wanted to, but I want to see what kind of coverage it'll get. We have our post flow around 8 seconds, so that's the shielding gas that will hover over your weld after you have released from your pedal. So when I do these links, I just go 3/4 of an inch, rotate roughly 90 degrees, 3/4 of an inch, a little bit more, and I try to get about 3 welds on here, flip it, do the same to the other side, grab another link, and then usually at that point I will go find something else to do, and I'll let these actually cool to the touch before I weld in between there. And then once you get your rip pass in completely, I'll let that all cool to the touch, and then we'll come back and do a cover pass. So let's see what kind of coverage and what the weld looks like with this 14. So we got a 332 tungsten sharpened to a point. We are running a red, which is a 2% thoriated, and we're gonna use a 045 TIG rod for filler. Now my reasoning for the 3/4 inch rule is the cup. So if you want to keep a molten weld underneath your shielding gas, you have to think of what size cup you're using. So if you run, you know, a 1 inch diameter cup, you can weld half to 3/4, and then after you weld, lift your cup up just a little bit. So what that does is fans the argon out and keeps it covering. That's how you will not end up with a bunch of bluing and stuff on your part, because it's your weld is cooling underneath the gas. So our post flow could be a lot longer. If you're welding like a piece of stainless or chromoly or something like that, you'd want your post flow to probably be up around like 18, but we're gonna rock it like this. All right, so that one is gonna sit and cool now. We'll do the other one really quick. So it's not bad, but I think when I go to do the cover pass on these, I'm going to switch back to the cup I normally use. And the reasoning for that is the flow is almost too much for the diameter of the material that we're welding. So it's, what it does is your gas comes out, it hits the edge and then flows past. And with the other inferior cups, the diffusion inside of them is a lot better. So it's more of a broader fan, and I can turn the CFH down a little bit so it's not shoving down past the part. So it's not bad, but I think when I go to do the cover pass on these, I'm going to switch back to the cup I normally use. And the reasoning for that is the flow is almost too much for the diameter of the material that we're welding. So it's, what it does is your gas comes out, it hits the edge and then flows past. And with the other inferior cups, the diffusion inside of them is a lot better. So it's more of a broader fan, and I can turn the CFH down a little bit so it's not shoving down past the part. All right. It's okay if it is, or I mean, you can change it. So we've got our links all welded together, and they've been cooling for a couple hours. So now we're gonna go and do the cover pass. So on a cover pass, I'm going to, hey Tuck, can you pop this one clamp right here? Yep. I'm gonna do a pulse cover, yeah, that one, with an 045 filler rod. I switched back to my FUPA cup. So I made a little mistake on numbers earlier. So this is actually a 14, this is an MK14. That other Pyrex cup is like closer to 18. Get too many of those things to keep track. So what I'll do is I'm gonna bounce around on these two links. I'm not gonna show you guys them all getting welded, but I'll get one 100% done, show you guys what it looks like, and then we got some TIG welding to do on the chassis. The rear end is only about 4 inches of weld away from being ready to paint, so that's exciting. All right, here we go. Did you grab the ground?
Yeah.
All right.
I'll never do that.
I always forget the ground. Always. All right, let's burn my fingers here. All right, I'll take you guys over and I'm gonna show you some stuff we're doing on the chassis as well. And I'll show you on this real quick. This thing even recording?
Yep.
Why isn't the back screen on?
There's no back screen.
That screen?
Touch it.
Learn something new every day.
Amateur. I'm just kidding.
Flip it around, do it on this side. So you can see the cover pass in there, and then, or not cover, you'll see the root, and then you'll see the cover. So what we'll do is we'll let these fully cool. Throw that one over there. Now these ones are the plate I was talking about. So the mounts themselves are all done, but this plate I'm gonna do cover passes on. So I could have easily welded this up really nice with no cover passes, but you'll see a little cutting right there on the edge. And that is just because I wasn't really, you know, being thorough on the first weld, because I knew I was gonna cover it. If I was gonna put that in from the beginning, I would have taken my time, but I like the look of certain things covered. So the rear shock mounts, I got to get in here now and see that little bluing? We got to get that cleaned off before we weld this way. We got that set up on both sides. All these little seatbelt tabs, I think I already showed you guys, those are all ready to go. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and, yeah, that's cool enough. We'll get set up here, and this is quite a time consuming process. So I'm gonna weld down here, and then fully let that cool before I do this one and this one. So you basically weld, let it cool, weld, fully let it cool, again, weld, let it cool. So when you're doing these double pass things and you want the cover to be perfect, you save those to the point where you have a bunch of welding going on. So we'll weld a little bit on that, we'll weld a little bit on the back here, and then we'll weld a little bit on this axle. We only have to, I think all we have left to do is right here, and then I gotta go put a bolt in, and I'm gonna weld about 3/8 of an inch to 1/2 inch down inside the link tabs. Then that will be ready for paint. So just keep welding. Okay, so now while the links are cooling off, we're gonna do just this weld down here and this weld over here. So go ahead and touch that, Tucker. Is that cool to the touch? Good?
Good, we're good.
So it's all wire wheeled and wiped down. When I do these welds, every time I'll literally weld this, take the tungsten out, clean it, weld that. So it's quite a process, but usually the end result, it's really worth it. So now I gotta clean the tungsten, move over. There's no point in showing you guys the whole process on every joint, but that's how you do that. So get it good, fillet weld in there, let it fully cool, clean, good tungsten. Every TIG machine is different, so the pulser you have to play with. I go a little bit on the faster side. I think we're set around 1.9 probably, if I was to guess, pulses per second. You know, like I said, I had the machine set at a higher amp. I don't use all of the amps, but you have to play around with those settings with your TIG welder. And the best way to do this is do it on something that you're building, so that way you try harder. If you just do it on the fab table, you're just gonna throw it away because you don't care, because it's just a practice. Put a shock tab on your chassis or do it on your cage. Do it on something that matters, so that way you're really focused on making it turn out right. Nope, those are done. Both sides. Everything's cool to the touch. Everything's good to go. Links are done. I rosette these with the MIG welder every time. TIG weld the fittings in, rosette with the MIGs. We got The rear shock mounts in, or not in, we got them fully welded finally. Got the gussets installed on both sides. The rear axle is all welded together. We just have to do a little cleaning on it tomorrow, and then that'll be ready for paint. All MIG welded together. That's weird. It's a lot of MIGing. So yeah, that's about it. We're just gonna, for the next couple weeks, we're just gonna be bouncing around this thing, you know, TIG welding stuff, MIG welding stuff, painting stuff. So we'll wrap this video up with that kind of what we did today. And then when we get to building the fuel cell and we get to doing the aluminum hard lines, which are gonna be the first aluminum projects that we do on this after we get the last few things welded and get the axles painted, then we'll start filming more on some of that stuff. If you guys have a YouTube channel, or anybody in here that watches these videos has a small YouTube channel, post it in, or you know, mention it in the comment section. I want to see other channels out there. It's hard to search, you know, on YouTube to find other channels that you might be interested in. But if there's guys out there that do a lot of the same stuff we do, and they do it at home, and they do it in a small garage, or even if it's in a big shop, whatever, I'm interested in it. I want to see that stuff. I want to see the tricks that other people do. I think it's really cool. So post it in there. You never know. Maybe if you post it in the comments, somebody else might see it and they might subscribe to your channel as well. If you guys post them in there, I'll subscribe to them. I think it's really cool. There is still sweatshirts on pre-sale until the 7th of this month. If you guys are interested, super cool. Stainlessspring.com. The link to our website is always in the description. But appreciate you guys. We're definitely not professionals. We know enough to do it wrong. We'll catch you later.